Well, hello everybody. It's Dr. Carmen Bryant. This is Car Chronicles. You guys ready? So yesterday was part one. I was talking about the narcissist commanding officer in Korea. So this is part two. So I think I left off with the story where we went into a meeting. And keep in mind, now I told you guys about how he conducted himself when we were dealing with the printer and printer paper. And so now we're dealing with going into a meeting. There's 12 of us in the meeting. And these are all his major players in the company, all the major leaders that make things happen for him, you know. So we're in there, we're sitting down, and our responsibility on a Friday was to provide him with the information and the status of the company. So this is the relevance of each leader and the information they have to provide him. Now, he goes around the table and he's insulting each and every leader. He insults them because he needs to know the status of the soldiers, whether they are physically fit, qualified, had the APFT, which is the Army Physical Fitness Test, called something else now, to make sure that everybody was up on their dental, make sure they're not category 3s or category 4s, because dental is very important. You know, it makes you non-deployable if you don't have your teeth fixed and cleaned. So, you know, the dental statuses, you know, make sure people have their training in place, you know, all this information. We also provide him with the information on the status of his equipment, vehicles, you know, if he's got helicopters, and a lot of them were tower operators, or what you would call, they call air traffic controllers. So I have to give the report on the air traffic controllers, the reports on equipment. All this is information that is required at these meetings. And he takes this information and he goes to his commanding officer, which is the brigade commander, and he has to present his status of his unit. So this is how important these meetings are. So he's going around to each individual before they have an opportunity to say anything. He's already dogging them out. He's dogging them out. He's talking about them. You know, he's talking about their personnel. He calling them stupid. And you got people in the military sitting in there with this officer who's been there probably 4 or 5 years. And you've got people in there served like 15, 16, up to 20 some odd years that are sitting in here talking to this commanding officer, and he's dogging them out. I mean, it's bad. And so I'm sitting there with my facial expression because, number one, as I told you guys before, I was in a situationship with a narcissist. I was married to a narcissist. And when you come from a history of narcissists as a child, you know, you don't want to be dogged out. You don't want to be talked to any kind of way. It's different when you're in the middle of it, family and marriage and stuff. But when you're on the outside, you know, a lot of people that have been through this or are going through this, they're fighters. They have a mouth on them. They're fighters, and they're going to fight back because they're reacting to the trauma and they're reacting to the triggers. And so I wasn't going to react because I had to be professional, but I'm staring at him thinking to myself, I wish you would. I wish you would. And I think my facial expression was just like, what are you going to say when you come around here? Because I double, triple dare you. We just had a run-in the office, you know. So you know I'm not afraid of you. But in my mind, I'm thinking like I'm going to be professional as I can. But I know. So you already know your facial expression, right? And as I said in the last video, he gets around to me, he calms down because I think he sees my micro expressions. He calms down. And I'm not saying that he did it because he's afraid of me, because all he was doing was just testing the waters. You know how narcissists are. They're testing the waters to see how far they can go. So they're testing the waters like playing Battleship. I got to figure out where I'm going to hit this button. So he's trying to hit these buttons. He's trying to figure out what's going to make me react. And so we get through this meeting and everything. So we're going on a field exercise, you know, so keep in mind, he's still trying to feel me out because he's got everybody in there afraid of him, you know, so we're going to this field exercise. Now, keep in mind, he's still a Black Hawk pilot. So he still flies missions, he still flies, he still gets his hours in, and he does supply runs and things like that. So now we're in Korea, and we're out on a field site. Now this field site, we drive through all this traffic. Anybody who's been to Korea know there's a lot of traffic, especially when you're dealing with military vehicles coming through Korea. It's a very crowded and congested area. And so it may take us longer to get to point A to point B versus getting on a helicopter, going to get the supply and coming back. So he finds out, you know, we're getting ready to make a supply run. So he lets me know, Sergeant, you're going to get on the aircraft with me and we're going to go and make a run. Now, someone told him, I don't know how he found out, that I don't do air. You know, I don't do heights. I don't do air. I don't do helicopters. You know, I don't do that. Number one, I already know his history. So his history is, if any of you guys know anything about helicopters and flying, some of you guys will know, I don't know how to articulate it that well, but it's flying the terrain. When you're flying the terrain, it means the helicopter is flying low to the terrain of the land. So if there's hills and valleys and, they're flying low to the terrain of the land for the purpose of staying incognito from the enemy, but they're flying the terrain. And if you're not accustomed to flying the terrain, you will get sick. And so what he used to do was open up the flap in the back of the helicopter, and he would get people in there, and he will fly the terrain. So, he's getting his hours in, but at the same time, he knows that people get sick. So people get air sick and they start throwing up. They start vomiting in the aircraft. And he thought it was funny. So he used to get people on there, and on purpose, he used to watch them as they got sick. He used to fly the terrain and watch them get sick. So he wanted to get me on the aircraft. I guess someone told him that I don't do air, but he told me, and he gave me a direct order that I will get on this aircraft. And of course, I said, no, sir, I won't do that because I'm going to ride with my soldiers. I am the technical commander, the TC of the vehicle. TC means that you're the co-pilot over there in the vehicle that you're driving, because you have to be with the soldiers. But I'm not going to let my soldiers go by themselves. But he demanded that I fly with him. But I already knew that the reason why he wanted me to fly with him is because he's going to have other people in there. He was going to humiliate me in front of these other people and watch me get sick. And I was not going to do it. So throughout this field exercise, he just keeps harassing me and telling me, and he's trying to use the regulations against me to tell me where he's giving me a lawful order, and that if I don't follow this order, he will give me an Article 15. Those of you know, under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, you can look up on the internet, Article 15. They can take your pay, they can take money, they can take a rank, they can do all that, especially if you come against, I think, Article 90, 91, one of those, for not following a lawful order by a commanding officer or an officer that's in charge of you. Well, number one, a lawful order is backed up by policies and law and everything. You can't just give me an order and tell me it's a lawful order when, it's different if I was in wartime. So you guys understand that. It's different if I was in wartime. We were in wartime and I failed to follow his order. That I can get punished for that. But because of the fact he just wanted to do it because he just wanted to humiliate me in front of, because I had respect in the company. I did. I was a non-commissioned officer. I was a female, and I was a black female, and I had a lot of respect in the unit because they didn't have but maybe one black female non-commissioned officer, which is an NCO, and one black female commissioned officer. Other than that, everybody else was what they were. You did have African American, air traffic controllers and things like that, but leadership wise, there was only three black female, me, officer, and a senior non-commissioned officer. But he wanted to make sure to humiliate me in front of everyone because most of these people were afraid of him. I was not afraid of him. And so the reason why I'm telling this story is because these are some of the experiences in the military, and this is just one of the experiences that I had. Some of you can tell your experiences that you had, because a lot of times people get into positions, narcissists get into position. Not everybody is a narcissist. Some people are just power hungry. But narcissists will get in position just because they can, and they just want to lord over, or they want power and control over people. They want people to be afraid of them because of their position. They want people to be afraid of them. They do things that is uncalled for, screaming and yelling and insulting you and doing things to make you afraid. Get on the aircraft with me to instill fear so that they can have fear over you, so you cower down when they come around. But just like I said in many other videos, all narcissists do not win at the game. It's not that you're playing a game, you're protecting yourself, but all narcissists do not get what they're looking for, another source of supply, another way to trigger someone. And especially in my age at that time, I was young at that time. My nerves were shot at that time. I was a young soldier. I was a young leader. My nerves were shot. I had to deal with that narcissist that I was married to, and it just so happened he was stationed in Korea at the same time. He was over here. He was community property. He had all sorts of, concubines, and he's doing all sorts of stuff. And of course, because of the fact that I took my career very seriously. I took my career, my reputation. The only thing that I had was my integrity and my reputation, because a lot of females, not all of them, a lot of females are known for making rank because of doing extracurricular activities to do it. I was just one that was going to prove to myself and to anyone around me that I don't have to do that. I was intelligent. I knew what I was doing, and I had the respect. You may not have liked me, but I had the respect. And the company commander knew that, because I had to use that to help him. But he was the type of person, he wanted power and control. He wanted you to bow down to him. And this is what happens in the military a lot of times. You get into these units units or companies, people get positions, they get rank, and they use that because they want power and control over people. What's the easy way to do it than to misuse the Uniform Code of Military Justice over people that have come in to serve the United States Army and to serve you? That's what happens sometimes in the military. Not